Welcome to the Merick NHL podcast, episode 5. We have voice actor Ryan Oliver Jones. This is a good one, folks. Stay tuned. Welcome to the Merick NHL podcast. This is episode 4. No, excuse me, it's episode 5 already. And we have narrator Ryan Oliver Jones, or Ryan Jones. And I want to give Ryan a proper introduction. Ryan is an actor, audiobook narrator, producer, and voice actor. Professional acting credits include George Orwell's Animal Farm and Charlotte Bronte's Jane Eyre. He has also performed in several TIE, I don't know if it's TIE projects, TIE, I don't know how they do that, touring all TIE all over the UK, and most recently, the 12th Night, an open-air tour around castles and stately homes. Other works include street theater, corporate roleplay, theater workshops. Ryan narrates audiobooks for Red Cape Publishing. He now lives with his wife Sacha and his family in North Wales, where he divides his time between audiobook production and his family life. And Ryan has ambitions to reignite his acting career, and I think he'll soon be pursuing that. I really do. Anyways, Ryan, so glad to have you. Are you still there?
Thanks, Sam. No, nice to be here, and thank you for having me. I'm good. I'm very well today, thank you. Everything's good.
Awesome. Well, I've been waiting to have you on, and you're a hard man to nail down. I know I tried to have you on last week, but you're a busy man, and I'm glad to have you this morning here or afternoon over in the UK. Before we get started, I would just say that I met Ryan through ACX because he is narrating Brothers of Chaos, and I'm so excited for that. Really have grabbed up a gem of an audiobook narrator, voice actor. So I am very glad to have you on the show, Ryan. Very glad.
Thanks, Sam. Thank you.
So,
thanks for having me.
We're jumping right in. How did you get started in voice acting and acting in general, Ryan? How did that lead you to this unique career, this unique art?
I suppose really, as a child, even as a child, it was really school shows, like the school productions that everybody kind of has to oblige to be taken part in, but they were actually quite exciting as a child to be involved in a play. I think that's where the first kind of seeds were planted, really. It went, just literally kind of film as, watching the lots and lots of films as a child as well. Just, that's where all the creativity started to kind of, I think, sort of permeate in my young brain. And then actually being able to go out on a stage and perform in front of people, it was like this huge release I'd never felt before, and like an empowerment which was pretty incredible. And I felt like I had to, wanted to taste that more, to be honest. I think, so that's kind of where it all started as a child.
Yes, I think I can relate to that. I felt like you kind of have this feeling, I don't know, like a sense of yourself. I think if you're a creative, where, I don't know, for me, it would happen when I was a child. And for me, it happened with guitar. I remember being in a church youth group production, and I had to borrow someone's father's Stratocaster, Fender Stratocaster. And the first time I played it, I was like, on stage, I was like, this is where it's at, man. I want to do this again.
Exactly,
and I was terrible,
exactly.
but still, it was amazing, and I feel like I can definitely tell you are I'm assuming you're a creative, because honestly, I guess we kind of can sense our own types of people, even though I might be a writer. Acting is part of that.
Definitely, yeah, and I think that's the thing. Sometimes it's it doesn't really matter. Like you say, what artist, sort of genre, what your background is. If you're a musician, if you're an actor, if you're an artist, you're a writer. I think you can have. There's similar things that kind of keep you going and make you tick. To want to sustain yourself in that world. Ultimately, you identify as a writer or an actor or a musician. That's how you see yourself even if other people may not see that. That's how you feel, yourself. And I think it's almost like you have to be really, really strong mentally to kind of to stick to that, regardless of what anyone else, what external noise is coming at you, and be true to that and kind of hold on to that as well, and that, just remember those things that that as to why you wanted to do that in the first place. Don't never ever sort of feel ashamed or guilty for that.
Yes. Yeah, and I feel like for myself, I've come to the conclusion now, after 46 years of life, that if I'm not doing some form of artistic endeavor, I become bitter, and I become very. I suffer from depression almost if I'm not doing art.
Yeah.
It's really true. I had a realization. I will be honest with you. I don't think I've shared this on my podcast before, but or maybe I have. I can't remember. Maybe with Bill, but I said a year and a half ago, I went to the doctor, and I was feeling just kind of miserable, and I had my testosterone levels checked and everything, and then I did some what do you call it? The questions and questionnaires, and they asked me a bunch of questions, check my heart and all that kind of stuff. And the doctor, my physician, told me that she diagnosed me with severe anxiety and moderate depression, and they wanted me to see if I would be on some medication or something like that. And this is funny because I know I'm a writer. That's what the show is about, fantasy and science fiction. But I've always loved playing guitar and being a songwriter of music, and I hadn't been doing that. This was like a year and a half ago. And she asked me if I wanted to take some medication or something for anxiety or whatever, and I said no, I'll just do without, and then I'll figure something else out. And probably back in August of last year, I started playing music again out, and I just came to the conclusion probably about 3 or 4 months ago that I really have almost zero anxiety and depression now. I mean, I could go back and re-answer all the questions on the chart or whatever, but it's because I feel like the only thing that's changed is that I've added that music aspect back to my life. And so it's something, it is actually a real thing, I think. Really it is.
No, I think it is. Like you say, I think you can sort of have like, I remember a few years ago there was an advert where I thought it wasn't really, kind of creative sort of based or anything, but there was an advert where it showed pieces of people missing, like there was like a piece of a jigsaw that was basically missing from, say if your body was here as a silhouette now, there was a big piece, say around, say whether that was your head or, round your kind of midriff section, where there was just a huge gap, a hollow where nothing, there was nothing, which basically was, something that was either missing or something that you've lost. And I think that's what it is for me. I think that the big one is when you're not tapping into that vein, if you like, of creativity. When the period of time goes by, you might not really sort of realize it until you've crept quite far into a mental cave with it, where, like you say, that might permeate as anxiety or depression, but in reality, you're just not getting fueled by what makes you tick. And you can step too far away from it sometimes, I think, and
this is a really deep topic to start off with.
Yeah,
I never knew that we were gonna go there, but it is really true though. I was trying to say I don't want to get political or anything because there's certain people that are polarizing, but I was gonna say I heard a well-known psychiatrist, and I don't even want to say his name because he kind of starts controversy, but he said that people who are high in trait openness are usually open. I can't remember the exact. I took a personality test, and there's 5 main personality types or traits. I can't remember exactly. The big 5 they call them. But if you're high in openness, that means your personality is kind of more open to expression and things like that. That then usually fall into that artistic type. And excuse me, what they have a lot of times is people who he said who are high in trait openness when they're not able to make a living doing art or not doing art regularly, just they do typically turn to bitterness because they just find it look at the world through. Anyways, all right. I don't. Anyways, it's very interesting. So we're talking about artisticness, okay? But I think so. We talk about being artists. You realized you're an artist when you realized that you had this this propensity for acting, and you were when you were young. How old were you when you did your first? You said school. So I'm thinking in my mind, I'm thinking like a grade school or even junior high when you started doing some acting and things like that.
Yeah, I think when it became kind of more of a, something that could actually become credible, if you like, as a profession. That came later. But like in terms of just planting those seeds and being able to think that, that just to have that feeling, like you say, like a cathartic release of emotion and being able to pour that into a character or characters, and share that with people. That came as a child, But then, later. I mean, I went to. I've been to several colleges. So I went to a theatre college in Nottingham initially when I was 19, and that was beyond A levels in school. So that really, in terms of an actual kind of performance and a qualification, if you like, I did an A level in theatre in school. Then I went off to college and learnt about all the different aspects of theatre and performance. So within that you had like creative writing, contextual studies, 70. It was about probably 70 or 80% performance based. Within that you do, a lot of plays, a lot of improvisation, a lot of devising. But really, what the aim of that course was to sort of make you into like a theatre practitioner, not really an actor. And that was where I realised that, wow, this isn't really acting, and if I want to be seen as a serious actor, I need to go to drama school. And that was everything I was hearing at that time. It was like all of the creative people, a lot of the people in the industry, casting directors, they were all sort of suggesting that I needed to go to drama school to have that badge of validation to be seen as a professional actor. So that's ultimately, what I decided to do. Even though you might have... It's a difficult one because some people don't take that route. If you think of like John Malkovich, for instance, he didn't go to drama school, but what a talent, unbelievable. He didn't need it, clearly. But what they were saying, a lot of the feedback is that even if, unless you're lucky enough to be John Malkovich, a lot of the feedback is go there, go to drama school, get the badge, as it were. That will give you a showcase. It'll put you in front of a lot of professional people, a lot of casting directors, a lot of agents, and that will be a good platform to to essentially go on and be an actor. It's a good foundation. So that's what ultimately what I did. For that was through that feedback.
Well, when I was looking for a voice narrator for Brothers of Chaos, I had put my book up on. I put my book on ACX, but I want to keep talking about your acting career and your art form. But I'm gonna kind of weave around here a little bit.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So whenever I eventually I was about to. I had this crazy idea that I was going to do everything myself. Okay, I am not a trained actor. I guess my background came from being a singer-songwriter. When I was a teenager, I wanted to be Bob Dylan. No joke, I was delusional. And and then I had a girlfriend who I was fortunate to have 2 children from, but I was 19 at the time when she first got pregnant with our first child, and so that kind of derailed that ambition. And so years later I was in and out of playing music, and I was working at waiting tables and managing restaurants and doing different things, and even later in life selling life insurance. But anyways, I during the pandemic I couldn't work my regular job. I was working as a sous chef at a luxury ranch that was a hunting lodge, and I got laid off during the pandemic, and so I took a course. I didn't know what I was going to do, so I took a course about. Somebody had posted a course about you could make all this money on Kindle, Amazon Kindle, just selling books, and I was like, well, that sounds like a great thing. It was kind of overblown blue sky mining, but I got into it, and this is a little open transparency. I don't know if this takes away from my readers, but my original idea, the course was you hire ghostwriters, and they will write the books for you, and you just stand back and just take the paychecks, and you'll get rich real quick. And I was like, oh, that sounds like a great idea. And that didn't work out. The ghostwriters I hired were getting 2-star reviews, and I said, you know what, let me try to write a book. And so that first book was Brothers of Chaos, and I had an idea. Actually, I did have an idea for a story for a long time, but I didn't think I could write it. And so I'm weaving way around here. I don't know why I do this. I'm taking the long route. Anyway, sorry. Anyways, so whenever I got into producing books, I really loved the story Brothers of Chaos. Don't get me wrong. It's not like a story that was like manufactured or anything. I had an idea if this was a prequel for a larger story that I have in my head that I actually thought of years ago, and just a real thing. And I just started getting 4- and 5-star reviews on that when I put it out, but I didn't know how to be a writer. My only background was being a musician, but I was a songwriter, and I think the thing that helped was I knew kind of that to be a great songwriter, you had to write a lot of songs. You had to be willing to just put in a lot of time writing and then weed through till you get to the good songs. And so I had maybe I had all this pent up creativity because I wasn't being able to put out these songs. I didn't have a producer. Maybe I lived in a small town. I didn't really have the connections. No excuses, but maybe I just didn't know how to do it. And so when I think I had all this pent up creativity for writing, and I just threw it all into science fiction and fantasy and science fiction. And so fast forward to like a few months ago, I was thinking that I was going to record all these audiobooks myself. I just thought I'd just do it all myself, and I'll take all the royalties or whatever. And the truth of the matter is, voice acting, I said all that to say voice acting is another art form. And even though you might get lucky to jump from one art form to another one, it takes quite a bit of time to master an art form. And I'm telling you, when I tried to start narrating some of these books myself, I was like, oh my God, this is going to take 1,000,000 years. I am not good at this. And so I said, you know what? I had an epiphany, and I told my girlfriend, I said, you know what? I would rather have 20% of something than 100% of nothing. Yeah. And I should spend more time writing and let somebody else who's actually spent decades of their life working on this art form. And so then I put it up on ACX, and then there was crickets. I think there was nobody actually. There was a few people who were commenting on it, but some of them sent me like AI auditions.
Oh, really?
It's weird. I was like, this is not a real person. And I think I messaged you. I reached out to you because I started looking. I was like, I want a British-sounding narrator for that old fantasy, Tolkien-esque sounding, narration. And I found you. And actually, I had found several other good narrators, and that said that sent me narration. But I had to seek for them. I sought for you kind of on ACX, and then what happened was I found a few that were good, and I shouldn't have messaged several at the same time, but I did. And you were like the third or fourth one, and whenever you heard when I sent you the message, I think your reply was something like, I don't know if I can do this right now, but I will check and see. And I asked you to commit to 5 books or 6 books, and you said, I don't know if I can do that. And then, but when I heard your sample on ACX on your page, I just thought, this guy is the best. I listened to your narration, and you have a certain quality of professionalism and art to it. The different voices you do. How's the word? I basically was like, I had that moment that I want to say that was like the Empire Strike Back moment when Darth Vader is on what do you call it, the Star Destroyer, and he's talking to the general, and the general says, "There's so many bases Lord Vader, we could be smugglers. He's like, no, the rebels are there. That's the one. And that's what I was like, no, this one is the one. And that's how I felt about you. And I felt bad because I had another great narrator message me because I took the book down. I coerced you into giving it a shot. And then I had another great narrator. His name's Andy Kidd. And I had promised him, he said he's going to need 2 weeks before he can give me a sample. And he's like, hey, I can't find the book. And I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. I found another narrator. And he's like, oh. And I said, but then I gave him a chance to do the novel that I wrote, Brothers. Let's see. He's working on this book. I don't know if you can see. He's working on The Wolf Rider. And this is a full novel. And then you're working on a collection. This is a collection of short reads, which comes into a pretty big, thick book here. But this is actually longer than a novel if we ever get to it. But I just want to tell you, like, so when I found you, and I'm not trying to say I'm a genius, but I am pretty much a genius for finding you, and I'm really happy about that.
I think it picked me out of a needle in a haystack. I think there's so many
I know.
narrators, and
yeah,
I mean, it's a difficult one.
Go ahead.
I don't know. I was just going to say, like, I mean, I've not. You just tend to see it from sort of the narrator's side. Obviously, you put the samples out there, but you're never really privy to anybody listening to your sound files and clips, if you like, unless you somebody actually gets in touch with you. So it's quite. I think the whole world of audiobook narration sometimes can be quite a lonesome one in some regards. Like. The difference between maybe, going out and being an actor and, sitting in my own studio, if you like, doing this is that, but then the actual creative kind of payoff is the same, and it can be more rewarding actually doing an audiobook than it can be doing a play, for instance, because a lot of the time with an audiobook, you can have more ownership about the things you want to apply for, the things that you might be interested in, so you can literally sort of filter all of that, and hope that people will get in touch with, say, sci-fi, fantasy, thriller, maybe the odd romance here and there, kind of book thrown your way. But
yeah, you are right about the loneliness, but I think that's another reason why, as a writer, I can connect with you on that, because when I am writing, I am alone with my stories. I'm alone with my characters. These characters are the only companions that I have, and I'm in this different world. I'm in Delantia. I'm in Valoria. I'm in the Viclogs. I am down there in this fantasy realm, and it can be kind of in the middle of the book. To me, is where it's the loneliest, because I'm like, I'm in it now. I've got to finish this, and like, is it going to be okay? Is it going to work out? Is it going to be readable?
Yeah.
Is somebody going to enjoy this? So it was really a pleasure when, after our initial, conversation, when you read the book and you said, I quite liked it and I really enjoyed it. That was a pleasure to me. It's always a pleasure to me. You know what? I that really means a lot to me. I feel like, and that's when I started writing. I think what has been my life-saving attribute is I endeavored to make really good hamburgers. I wanted these to be just satiating to my readers. I wanted them to just enjoy that. I want it to be. I like Ernest Hemingway. I like his books, but I don't see myself as an award-winning writer of all time, or even that quality of I don't think I have the greatest prose, but since a small child, I've had an active imagination, and so I've really got to enjoy this. And the type of characters that I really wanted to write were characters who are flawed. Like Vandren's very flawed, as you find out later in the story, and he's fortunate enough to have really good friends. And friendship, I think, is the theme of Brothers of Chaos in many ways. And I think you're going to see, and that's the whole point, because Brothers of Chaos is... now, I'm getting off subject again. Well, I forgot what we were talking about. We're talking about the loneliness of art. But there is a payoff when you finish. The finished work is a payoff. Plus, I think when you are say if you were street performing or if you were in a theater and you had an audience behind you, you get an immediate reaction. You get a payoff when they clap or they laugh at the line that's really well written. But when you are alone in your cave doing your audio book, I can imagine, you have these thoughts of like, there's no guarantee. You're. I know how my parents are, but your parents and loved ones can be like, you might be like, are you really still doing that? Is that really going to pay off? And then you don't get an immediate, like, reaction from your audience because your audience is everywhere. I mean, your audience from this book can be in California. They can be in Australia. They can be in Arizona, Canada,
Do you know what? One of the difficult things, I think one of the most difficult things with audiobooks, I mean, how I see it is that you've got a narrator's voice. And a narrator's voice, so for the main narration, if you like, the through line of the story, that'll be a mainstay voice, and then there's characters' voices. The individual characters, there'll be dialogue, there might be interspersions of multiple characters coming in and have it all speaking at invariable times within a almost like a play, really. It sort of goes from a story narration to a play where you've got all these characters. The difficult thing, I think, one of the hardest things is when you have another person there. So say if it was a dialogue and I was, say with yourself now, we were acting a two-man play in the theatre. I can say a line to you, you listen and respond, whereas with this, I'm listening to myself, but responding as a different character.
It's like you have multiple personalities disorder.
Yeah.
I imagine after a long session of doing that, you must take the headphones off and go, and you look at your wife or girlfriend, and you'd be like, am I insane?
Yeah, exactly, yeah. It's funny because it can be palpable. Sometimes you can think, okay, I can listen to that, and that sounds like a believable response. Or that sounds like he's listened to that, and that sounds like how he would respond.
As a writer, I think about that. You want to have good writing, I think about like, okay, here's a character, he's here, he's here, and I want to take him over here on this journey but he's going to go through a lot of pain and suffering and, false hopes. And I think to myself, what could lead this person to really naturally end here? What's believable? What would motivate someone to do this, and what response would? And almost the worst thing is if you have a character that everything goes good for him or everybody agrees with him, So it's just, it's here's the thing too, like the collapse of the music business in the 90s, I think, it was it's very hard to make money playing music unless you're you're the 1%, the 5% who are out there. And I feel like writing has given me a way of expressing myself now that I can I can get out there and I can write a book, and it can and people read it, and that's the thing. Even if it's not making me tons of money yet, people, and it is a fulfillment of that. But I forgot where I was going with this. I kind of forgot where I was going with that, but that's just I think the thing is that Kindle publishing and Audible books, it's not perfect, because I feel like we're living in this Amazon monarchy of where you can go other places, but they don't seem to be as popular. So like we could publish audiobooks on different platforms, but from what I understand, even like Spotify and different things like that, we're trying to get attention to these books, and we are getting attention. Don't get me wrong. Like these books, I'm telling you, hopefully, hopefully I'll still be able to afford you when these books blow up. But I have faith. I really do, because I feel like this story is going to live. I really do believe it. And let me ask you a question. Have you heard of an author named Stephen Pressfield?
I haven't, to be honest, no.
Well, he did, most famous for, he did a screenplay of, what was that, Bagger Vance movie? Is a golf one? I don't know if I'm saying the name of the movie right. What's that name? It was a movie about a golfer. Who and says, Bagger Vance. I'm trying. That's not the right name of it. What is it? Let me look that up real quick. But anyways, that's not what I have most known him for, though. I'm gonna say Stephen Pressfield. The Legend of Bagger Vance. That's his most famous movie. Who wrote the screenplay, The Legend of Bagger Vance, and that had Will Smith in it, Matt Damon.
Oh wow.
It had some famous actors in there, but that's not what I was going to talk about. But the story was by Stephen Pressfield.
Mm-hmm.
He is the author, and I would encourage you, Ryan, to check out. He's got several great books on art. He has a book called The War of Art. Is a great book. It's nonfiction. He has a book called Turning Pro, and he has a book called Get Your Ass Where Your Heart Wants to Be. And so, listening to your story, what was the acting and theater production company of the college that you went to? Because I never went to any kind of formal art school, even in music or writing, but I have tried to educate myself when it comes to books I've read and, maybe some courses I've taken online.
Well, look, the drama school I went to was the Academy of Live and Recorded Arts in London. So that was the drama school, if you like. So that would have been, formal actor training in a professional centre. And that's, at the time when I went there, it was probably in like the top 5, top 6 drama schools in the country. But they, that is literally kind of, if you want to be a professional actor, you'll go there to a similar establishment, say RADA being the most famous. I'm sure you've probably heard of the RADA, as British actors call it. And then there's places like Lambda, Guildhall, Lipper in Liverpool, but most, the majority of them are down in London.
I'm not very well versed in these schools, but my point was asking you about that was because when you are moving towards that direction of that, passion in your heart, you're putting your ass where your heart wants to be, and that's what I'm saying. So, and I think that's kind of about that book. That short book's kind of about that, and I'm saying that bluntly. I just can tell you right now. I mean, you are a great talent. I've listened to a lot of different narrators. I have 3 pen names, and I have gone through several narrators on another pen name that I have, which I won't mention on this podcast. And the narrators I have from that, I found some great narrators, but I'm telling you, you are a great voice actor. You're the quality.
Thanks.
Let me tell you something. When I listened to Brothers of Chaos for the first time, part 1, I was just, me and my girlfriend were listening to it, and we were just mesmerized. We were like, this is great. This is fantastic. It brought me back to the story. Honestly, I think that's another dimension. Like, you can read the book, but, so many people in America, I'm just going to tell you right now, they're illiterate. I mean, they're basically illiterate. I mean, I'm not trying to be ugly, but it's it's getting to be one of those things where people don't have imagination as much anymore.
Yeah.
I'm trying to instill that in my 8-year-old daughter. I'm trying to get her off the screens and try to do some different things. And it's funny because yesterday, we had a strong storm and it knocked the power lines down, so we were without power for 2 hours, and so we were sitting in the dark. We actually had to sit and talk to each other. I wouldn't have been able to do this podcast if I had to yesterday. And it's so funny, my daughter actually started talking to me and telling me stuff about her life and stuff, things that she was watching on TV or things that she was interested about. And we kind of missed that sometimes because, I mean,
that's it. If you hadn't had the power cut, you probably wouldn't have had that conversation.
No, we wouldn't have.
That you say, I know exactly what you mean. I mean, my children now, I mean, it's worrying because you feel sometimes as a parent that you need to limit the amount of screen time and things like this. Worried about, are they going to lose that sense of natural play, as a child, and that imaginative play that, that we all probably experienced as children. But it just does feel nowadays that with so many different screens, so many different kind of distractions, that children could quite easily lose that, and that I think some children possibly have,
Yes.
lost that kind of world of imagination.
Yeah. When I was a child, this is the mid '80s. And I'm 46, and I mean we ran around. We were ninjas. We were commandos. We were soldiers of fortune. We were all these
G.I.
things
Joes,
in our
Teenage
backyard.
Mutant
Exactly.
Hero Turtles.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. G.I. Joe's was the best. I had a friend of mine who grew up was really close to. His name was Sean, and he had the G.I. Joe aircraft carrier. It was like 9 feet
cool.
long,
Wow.
something like that. He had every G.I. Joe imaginable. It was so wonderful. But anyways, yes. But what I'm saying, like, people are illiterate. I mean, I hate to be ugly because I'm not. There's a many literate people in America, but it's getting to be where people don't have the imagination, and I think that even hurts people for as far as like people just watching Netflix and things like that. So, but also I think that the unique thing about audiobooks is it's something it's a blend of imagination because you can be driving in your car. You could be going on a long walk with your headphones on, or you can be doing different things, and then you get to hear this amazing voice narration. But actually, the fantasy world is limitless. You don't need CGI because you have it all in your head. So it's pretty amazing. So I'm pretty excited.
That's exactly, I think, what you're touching upon there as well. I think that's another thing. I mean, that's something I'm conscious of and try not to do as well, is get in the way of somebody else's vision. Do you know what I mean? It's like you're trying to use the text that's there to create a believable fiction. So I don't want to get in the way of that with anything imposed by myself. And I think that sometimes as an actor as well, you could see this was part of a training. As an actor. So as an actor, they might say, look, you're using your own prejudice or maybe your own kind of ideals. You're projecting them onto this character when maybe they're not necessarily there. So how I see it is that I try to go with what is written down for for a character. The same with narration. I mean, the story tells itself, so don't get in the way of it. And I think a good narrator and a good actor doesn't get in the way of that story. They're there to tell the story, not get in the way of it. So
well, you tell it well. I tell you what, I'm really enjoying it. We enjoyed. I can't wait for you to do Brothers of Chaos Part 2, because I'm just, the story comes alive when I hear it. It's like hearing it for the first time. Even though I wrote it, I'm like, wow, that's an interesting story. I like this. I have enjoyed my story more than I have. I was going to talk. We're going to listen to some samples of Brothers of Chaos in a minute, and then I want us to comment on it. But before I do, I just want to keep on this vein of creativity, okay? And so I have been a big fan of John Cleese, and he has several talks on creativity. You can find them on YouTube and stuff. But the gist of it, the main thing of it is, he says that you cannot be creative in a closed state. And so basically most of corporate life we're in a closed state, We're told to be serious, we're told to be conscientious. You go, you put in hard work, and you come back, and then you have a committee or you have a supervisor, and we're making sure that we are productive, that we have been useful with our time, and that that we have done all our checklists and everything that we need to do. And in that state, there's not a place for you cannot be creative in a closed state. That's his theory, and he has done so much work. And like you said, we talked we talked before the podcast a little bit about John Cleese, and he's maybe not be the most spontaneous of the persons in you said in Monty Python, but he seems to be one of the best writers of this, of Monty Python, where he had so many profound skits and sketches and stuff like that. And he says that creativity comes from a state of playfulness. And I really relate to that. So like when I'm writing, oh God, I try to leave all the family problems behind. I try to leave all the stress of regular life or worry about paying the bills or anything like that. I have to get in this other space where it's just like, okay, this is playtime now. And it's kind of like going back to your imagination. And I think where I try to go back to this space in my place ahead where it's like Yeah, it is a playful state. It's like anything is possible. There's no wrong answers.
Yeah.
And when I'm writing, I just say, okay, now I'm going to
Mm.
write.
What
And
exactly what you're going through
and
there now, what you're explaining is exactly what most actor training will try to push. What the message through will be exactly that. So, like you say, we're living on essentially there's a vertical and a horizontal plane, and that's what they try to look at. So, like, your everyday, I'm going to the office, I'm getting on the bus, I'm getting on the train. I'm watching the news, which is just 99% bad news all the time.
Yes.
That is literally kind of, I've got, this is all permeating and essentially making my mindset think and lose, all the time. You're losing the inner child, you're losing your sense of play, sense of joy, sense of kind of wanting to actually have fun with anything. And
yes.
this is, one of the big ones really for acting. I found one of the most useful tools and the most useful kind of, I suppose, genres of art form really was clowning, in acting. So you've got the clown, which is exactly what John Cleese is. Exactly that's what they're going. But it's not the clown as in the idea of the circus clown. So this is the clown as in the idea of the child that gets things wrong but doesn't stop because they get things wrong.
Yeah.
They keep going and they keep on falling over. They keep failing. They keep elements of the circus clown are taken from that, but the clown is just is essentially is an openness. There's a real openness about it. It's like seeing things for the first time, hearing something for the first time, smelling something for the first time, smelling coffee for the first time. When the joy of that, or the joy of tasting chocolate for the first time. We forget all of these things, and we just take it all for granted, and it all kind of becomes this enveloped sort of sense of we're just on this one plane of of life, and we don't really there's. Do you know what I mean? We're not having these kind of pitfalls or huge kind of like peaks that we did as a child, which and I think as an actor you need to go as not just as an actor. As
children can learn different languages, but when they're below age of 6, they have this creative state, and when they lose it after 6, it's weird. And then so it's kind of that similar vein. Or you're saying is like where they're discovering everything for the first time. They're in a state of discovery, and when children are when you're in school or academy and you're like have a state where you're daydreaming and the teacher says, no, Johnny, pay attention to the class. You might be, and so we're trained that. Oh, no, pay attention. You cannot let your mind wander.
Yeah, from school. Usually school can be one of the main catalysts into actually, I think, losing a lot of that sense of play, a lot of that sort of sense of, I don't want to completely destroy the schooling system because there's some brilliant teachers and but the structure of it is very rigid and it doesn't
some of
fit
it
everyone.
is militaristic too. I think some of schooling is taught us to be submitted and to what do you call it to be a productive member of society. I get that to a degree, but I think that like what with art, with artists, the difference between artists and other professions, I think, is that you have to be okay with being wrong and just be like, hey, we're gonna go do this. But I think people are afraid to try things because they don't want to be wrong, or they don't want to be thought of as they didn't do it right or something. And I think with writing or art, you have to have that freedom to get it wrong, and you have to be like, it's okay. Because
like you say, just be prepared as well to be able to take that kind of like there's there's so many people that will be a critic to everything that you do or say. Sometimes I think the fear of that kind of criticism, if you like, is enough to stop a lot of people actually doing anything. And I think that was a big part of like even surviving as an actor. You have to be able to take brutal criticism. You have to kind of and then bounce back and go again. Step in front of people again and
yeah,
go
but
again.
there's so many people who are critics that have never really done anything too. So
No.
you take it with a grain of salt. I feel
You
like
have to,
the most best criticism comes from people who've actually done it, and they're a lot more kinder usually. They're a lot more. They have probably more of the best criticism, which is constructive criticism, because they can actually say, I've done something similar to that, and I think maybe if you change this one little thing, it might be better.
Yeah,
Those are the kind of the people that are like give you the great criticism. But so many people. There's other things too. Is like Ernest Hemingway said, there's a book, there's a movie. I don't know if it's a true quote of Ernest Hemingway. I don't know if it's a true quote or not, but it's in a movie. I think it's called Midnight in Paris. But the quote is, the guy goes to Ernest Hemingway. He's an author, and he says, "Mr. Hemingway, will you please read my book? I want your opinion on it." And he says, "No, sir, I will not read your book because I hate it." And he said, "What? What? Why do you hate it?" It's like, well, for one, I hate it because it's probably terrible. But if it's not terrible and it's great, I hate it even more because I didn't write it. Anyways, I just think that's kind of true sometimes. It just really depends on who you're getting your criticism from. So
no,
but anyways,
go.
This has been. Go ahead. Keep going. What
No, go.
No, I was just gonna say this has been really fun talking about this because I really love listening to what you have to say about this, and we can kind of go down this rabbit hole for a long time. But I really enjoy talking about creativity, and so
if just kind of on the same sort of topic, there's a book that was quite inspiring when I was probably about 19, 20 years old that I found, and the book is called Improv by Keith Johnson, and there's a section in there about a few things that we've actually just spoken about. So about schooling, how basically there's a child in an art class one day, and he, as an adult, grows up and, as a child is very prolific, doing lots of drawings, and then as an adult stops drawing. And he's asked one day, he's like, "Why did you stop drawing?" And it's like, well, I'd never really thought about it that much, but I'd trace it back to an art class in school. And during that art class, we were all told to draw a tree. And my tree was blue, the colour blue. And the teacher said, "No, that's the wrong colour. Trees aren't blue." And that was kind of a day, that was the day he developed the complex, if you like, and stopped drawing. He just stopped wanting to draw anything. But that, obviously that's just part of the book. But there's, as an example, which I think it's just saying that as a teacher or as an authoritarian or as somebody that can actually give advice and be able to kind of like try to nurture something or someone, just have to be careful, how we say that sometimes. You see, I mean, I'm sure we've all experienced that. We've all been that child, whether it be in an art class or somewhere else.
That's so profound because to be honest with you, when I was younger, even younger than as I was, I played guitar. I also I liked reading books. I loved reading, the Lord of the Rings, and I loved reading Ernest Hemingway. I loved the whole idea of like having that classic novel. I don't know if people even have novels anymore. I don't know, but like the classic, The Sun Also Rises or something like that. But I remember writing a story, and like I wanted to make it into a novel, and and I was there 16 or something like that, and I hand wrote this story, and then I gave it to my cousin Gina, who was very intelligent. We were really close friends growing up. So she's my same age or a year older than me, and she kind of laughed at it. And she read it and gave it back to me and wrote these silly notes on it with like laughing notes, and just it was just kind of like. And then I was like, oh, who am I kidding? I can't write. And so I kind of tossed it aside. So here I am now, literally 30 years later, writing novels, and I never thought I could. My whole life, I didn't ever think, I could write novels. I could write fantasy, I just... Yeah. And so much of my time when I was watching movies and things like that, I would think to myself, God, I could write a better story than this. This is crap. I'm not just saying sometimes, watching Netflix or watching a story like, how come it always comes to the same dull plot that just we can okay, you watch the first 15 minutes, you go, okay, this is what's going to happen. He's going to get with her. This is the bad guy. He's going to eventually end up here, and then there's so many times I was with my girlfriend and she'll just like, you ruined the movie, because basically it's just a formulaic thing. Yeah. Anyways, man, I am loving this conversation. Let's keep it moving, though, because we've already burned up almost 50 minutes, and I love it. I love it. But let's go ahead and play a clip of Brothers of Chaos, narrated by Ryan Oliver Jones. I'm telling you, man, I love this performance. So what we're going to do is we're going to step away from the microphone for a minute, and we're going to pop right back in and give you guys a chance to listen to a clip of Brothers of Chaos Part 1, and then we're going to come back and discuss that. So this podcast might run over just a bit. I hope I can keep Mr. Jones on the podcast for maybe extra 10 minutes. Is that okay, Ryan?
Yeah, that's fine, yeah.
I don't want you to get late. If we have to go, it's fine. I know, because you have a lot of things going on, too. But I feel like the time has just flown by. All right, hold on just a second, and we're going to play a clip of Brothers of Chaos, and we'll be right back to talk about it.
Chapter 5. Vareth has been gone too long, Dane said in the dimly lit upper room of Glenclair Keep. Vandrin could see his father's silhouette against the fireplace. His back was to him as he walked into the great meeting room of Clan Glenclair. "Rob's here now," interjected Marith, Vandrin's mother and Rob's aunt. Her voice had a blend of compassion and concern. Robert's face was pale and sombre as he walked from behind Vandrin and closer to the fire. "Rob, you're a man of 15 years, said Dane. "It's best that you know the truth, regardless of the harsh realities." Dane's face seemed older and more tired in the light of the fire's glow. To Vandrin, his wrinkles seemed deeper. "Your father," Dane paused. "My brother knew the risks, the treacherous place he was going, and the mood of the Dalantir of late. It's most likely he is dead, and you are the man of your father's house now. I've never known a braver man than my brother." Bjorn, Kinnison, Vandrin, Rob, and Marith stood silent, listening in the castle room. Mason, a clean-shaven man in his 30th year, the captain of the guardsmen of Hearthshire, was looking solemn. As usual, he dressed in a fine purple tunic, armed with a short sword and a dagger with an emblem of a wolf carved into the ivory handle. It was a beautiful weapon. Vandrin wondered how he kept so well dressed. Everyone in the village knew and spoke well of him. A cool fall breeze blew in from the meadow. Marith approached the window and shut the wooden shutter. "He may be alive in some dungeon, but I don't want to think about it." Dane walked over to Marith and put his arm around her. "Have you spoken to Suzanne?" "No," she said. "I should have invited her to this meeting," said Dane as he ran his hands through his beard. Vandrin never saw his father look more sombre. "Let's just all say what we are thinking," said Bjorn, ending the silence. "The barley and the hops were half the tribute tax this year, and still we have many in the village who are starving or suffering hardships. Dalantir has been on the move. We all heard what happened to Devonshire in the south. Towns burned. Peasants and noble persons alike were taken as slaves or blood sacrifices. We can't wait around to be killed or have the town burned. I say we take whoever wants to flee to Freeman's Isle up the rocky crags, past Melbourne Amstead, and hire ships to make the journey to the land of the Viclogs. At least we will be free." Bjorn spoke and everyone listened. He had become the heart of the clan, strong and devoted. "It's many days' ride to the Freeman's Isle before we hire boats, son," said Dane. "And with winter coming—" "Father, it's something," said Kinnison. "Maybe it is," said Dane. "But we have no crops to barter with.
We would have women and children, and we can't take the whole village. And what would become of those left behind? Yes, father, said Bjorn, it's true. But we may face the same or worse than what befell Devonshire from the Dalantian paladins and their mages. Let's not be hasty, said Mason. I say, said Kinnison, anyone who couldn't make the journey could flee to the ruins in the north and hide in the hills, Kinnison interjected. The wood elves would kill them, said Dane, as he shuffled the weight of Evertrue, his broadsword, and moved it off his tired back. He took off his old sword, sheath, and harness too. Dane looked at Vandrin, and flung his equipment towards him. Vandrin caught the sword, harness, and sheath. Hang that over my chair, said Dane. The wood elves won't kill Vandrin, said Kinnison, smiling. He's more elf now than clansman. He can take his Umberden friends and just blend in. Wouldn't be the worst company, said Vandrin. Savage wood elves or you, brother, Vandrin snapped back at Kinnison. Vandrin hung his father's gear on his head chair at the old, long wooden table. No, the wood elves aren't civilized, said Dane. Not like the half-elves. And they hate the half-elves more than the humans. But maybe some of what Bjorn and Kinnison said makes sense. We can't wait to be sacked by the Dalantians, and we are no match for their army. We could offer our services to the Viclogs. We suffer starvation here after the famine, and we know what they did to Devonshire. Well, you are the men of your houses. Glenclair and Mason represent the town. Mason, what say you? Said Dane. Good Master Dane, said Mason, you are wise. You know the journey alone to the Viclogs is treacherous. Most of the people in the town could not make the journey, and we don't really know what happened to Devonshire. I wasn't there. There are only rumours. We bide our time and negotiate with the Dalantians for mercy. Yes, that's what we do. We could raise a tariff of gold and ride it out to meet the Dalantians. We, said Dane, nor the village have enough gold to fill a bard's hat. You know that. But you have made your point. Dane scanned the room. All eyes were on him. Glenclair, what say you? Do we wait and see what may happen? Or do we take what we have and flee to the Isle of Freeman of the Viclogs and try to make a treaty with them?
All right, we're back. I hope everybody enjoyed that little clip from Brothers of Chaos Part 1. I just personally love Ryan's job on the narration of Vandrin and all the other characters, even all of the characters, even the evil ones. Did you have a particular character that you enjoyed voicing more than anyone else on the doing Brothers of Chaos?
To be honest, I think it probably was Jowl, actually. I think I probably enjoyed him. But then, there's a few voices that I enjoyed. I think you enjoy more. I mean, I quite liked Vareth before he got killed as well. And I was a bit gutted, actually, that he got killed off, because I thought he was somebody that I actually sort of wanted to live on and wanted to sort of hear more of his voice, really. To see where it could go. So yeah, I mean that was one aspect of it, actually. Obviously, a lot of characters, big characters, and get killed off within that first story. So it's
the story for me when I wrote Brothers of Chaos was a prequel to a grander story that I have in my head to write about Vandrin the Valorian and his friend Zan Kadin, who seems to be like his. They're very good friends, but they're opposites, kind of like. I would say Zan is very conscientious and just very loyal and very held by tradition and principles. And Vandrin is kind of a troublemaker and kind of and I hope that came through in the first book.
Yeah, I think, like you say, he's more kind of I think Zan's probably trying to do things by the book, whereas Vandrin's ripping the book up really in a lot of ways. He's kind of like a bit of a, well, he's sort of the thing is he doesn't buy into anything his family says, does he? About
he's the outsider. Yeah, and it's funny because I really liked how you narrated. I'm losing my mind. I can't even think of my own characters. But Vandrin's father, not Verith, but I just forgot my own character's name for a second. Vandrin's father's name, and I should know this. Why can't I think of it right now?
I think that's the thing. Your mind just goes into a bit of a cave when you try to actually pinpoint something. But I know who you're talking about.
Dane.
Yeah.
So Dane, Dane. I love the scene where he's at the fireplace and he's lecturing Vandrin about like, hey, get your head out of the clouds. This is great. We're leaving for the Viclogs. You don't need those elves. You're getting a bad reputation all around town, running around with this elf girl or whatever. And I thought you did a great job narrating that. I don't know. Did you notice any foreshadowing that I put in the first wood with again, I'm losing my mind. This story though I wrote 4 years ago, and I don't reread it except for in the editing process so I of course I'm very familiar with Vandrin and Zankadin, but when I talk about like his family members and go back to that early chapter, okay, now the antagonist in Brothers of Chaos Part 1 is mostly, I don't want to give it away for people who haven't listened to it, but there is an antagonist who ends up becoming an assassin. Did you get that? Did you get any foreshadowing in there when Vandrin was in the meeting? You kind of see right away that this guy's a antagonistic guy. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. I think there's a needle there, isn't there? I mean, it's sort of suggested in, even with the the narration and stuff, but I think it's suggested towards Vandrin has a lot of feelings maybe that he doesn't act upon. So he suspects something is kind of going on, but doesn't maybe he hasn't reached the mental age and maturity to actually sort of go with his impulses. At this point.
Yeah, because he's too young or he doesn't want to. But the interesting thing is, I wrote a character in this story that is all through Brothers of Chaos, and she will be in a future novel, and that is Lilith, and she's an interesting villain. I sometimes in the story you kind of I feel for her sometimes because you see like she has ambition and stuff, but you're gonna see some other situations, but she's pretty evil because she's a murderer
pretty devious, and like there's something she's always plotting, isn't she? So there's a lot I think in what she doesn't say when she's listening. It's almost like what's she thinking about now.
There's way more stuff with her throughout Brothers of Chaos, and I found her such an interesting character and her quest for blood magic. So what did you think of Brothers of Chaos? Did you have any thoughts on Brothers of Chaos? Because I think people are going to need to go out and get Brothers of Chaos Part 1. You need to listen to the narration because you're going to really enjoy it. I was going to tell you something. By the time this is playing, it probably won't be available, but I'm doing a free book promotion real quick on Brothers of Chaos Part 1, but that's coming up. By the time this is out, you'll miss your chance. But I think you can get Brothers of Chaos as an ebook for like 99 cents, so it's really, I'm not sure what is that in pounds or in euros or in 99 cents.
99 cents, I'm not sure.
It's less than $1. So.
Yeah, it's probably about 70 pence, maybe something like that.
Yes, so something like that. So you can get the ebook, but I really recommend people come out and get the audiobook. It's about 2 hours long almost, and it's a great listen. But any thoughts do you have on the story, Brothers of Chaos, so far for me, Ryan?
I just think I don't know, I really enjoyed telling that story, and I'm quite looking forward to what comes next. Obviously I've not read the other 5 parts of this yet.
It's exciting.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so just interesting to see where and how these characters change and develop. Because obviously anything like kind of happens to what's happened to the central character here. Obviously, we've had a lot of loss. Had to deal with a lot of loss, and how he comes back from that really.
Somebody could expect that this is a young adult book, YA, but it never wrote it to be one. I mean, even though we're talking about characters who are, teenagers, this is a prequel story. It's kind of a dark fantasy, so it's not necessarily geared for middle grade. It's more of a because there is a lot of tragedy and darkness that happens. So so it could be people could be mistaken, but I don't think this is more of a. I really wanted to write a prequel, but a dark fantasy, and so I think it's gonna. I think there's a lot gonna happen. Now we did have one problem recording it, and it's not a bad problem because I feel like you did a great job, but because you had only read book part 1 of Brothers of Chaos, you didn't quite get the character of Eliezer, and I think you're going to find Eliezer is a very interesting character, book 2, 3, and 4. So I think you're going to really possibly enjoy that character more as we get to see more of Eliezer.
Yeah.
And there's some twists in there. There really is. So he's the parental character of the story. He is the what do you call that? I forgot what you call that word. Paternal character of the story. I think you're going to enjoy this character. But you voiced everything great. I'm just super happy. People are going to want to check out after they've listened to this sample. I'm sure they're going to want to come check out the audiobook. Also, on a side note, I'm doing a side project here. It's called The Ninja Girl, and it's going to be out in about. It's going to be probably about. We're going to do a Kickstarter in about 3 months. 3 months or so, I'll be doing a Kickstarter promoting this. What I'm going to do, I have a novella about this story of the Ninja Girl, and I'm also having a full single produced. It's going to be alternative rock, and my producer even is going to try to get some Japanese instruments that I think it's called a junsing or guansing. I can't really pronounce it right, but it's a very kind of like harp type instrument that they play in Japan. It's more of a stringed instrument that has more of those I forgot you call it, Asian scales that they play, and so it's different. But it's going to be at the intro of the song. But it's going to be different. We're going to really put a full production on that song, and then I'm working on a graphic novel. I have some artists I'm talking with, working on a cover pretty soon. So I think it's going to be an interesting multimedia project. And it's also going to be an audiobook. I have some narrators who specialize in doing manga and who can pronunciate Japanese pretty well. So, and it's like a brother and sister team. So,
wow.
But I don't know. I played you a clip of the song. What'd you think of that rough clip that I played you? What'd you think, Ryan? Any thoughts?
I quite like it, actually. I think it was good. Yeah, I can imagine kind of like some sort of montage sort of playing on in the background with, with
it's kind of weird. It's a weird song.
Yeah, I think, like you say, but it's quite. I don't know. I suppose it's his love song, isn't it? Really, he's kind of.
It's about a guy who meets a beautiful woman, and they just fall in love immediately, and he thinks to himself there has to be something wrong with her. It turns out she's running away from a dark past of being a ninja assassin, and so she's trying to get out of the ninja guild. But as you know, it's difficult to get out of the ninja guild.
Yeah.
You have to kill your way out, or you may have to just...
There's quite an interesting one. I know you've already spoken about this, probably in another podcast, but you were talking about the Blue Samurai.
And, the Blue-Eyed Samurai.
Blue-Eyed Samurai, yeah. And I really like the story, her story, when she basically falls in love with a guy, and then he realizes basically that he's emasculated by her in a lot of ways.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
And then he rejects her because she's stronger and more talented than he is as a fighter.
Yes.
And then there's really interesting in that kind of,
yes.
I
love that story, that Blue-Eyed Samurai, or the Blue-Eyed, I think it was called Blue-Eyed? Is it just called Blue-Eyed? I remember it. But
yeah.
That story... One thing I liked about it is that showed the inherent racism because they didn't want other races there. So she was treated as an outcast because she was different. But I think the way they did it in the story made it really well, where she had a cast of friends who became her allies. And I feel like good stories involve friendship and also good villains. Yeah. And I think they did that well. Also, they didn't use too many cliches with I just feel like it was well done. I don't mind a strong female main character if you when you listen to the story, the story holds that up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's a lot of times there's characters that have no depth. They don't have an arc. I thought that was a brilliant story too.
No, it
and
was.
So
it's so beautifully drawn as well. I think it was just the world that they had sort of envisioned that was realized. And I think everyone was really welcomed into that world.
I hope we get a season 2. I really do.
Yeah.
I was going to say how the Ninja Girl is similar to that only in one way, as we are dealing with ninjas and not assassins. But there's several ninja guilds in the story who are trying to kill her because of old grudges, because she's actually quite good at being a ninja, and they call her the White Devil because she's a blue-eyed, blonde-haired ninja girl, and they only respect her because she's so deadly, and so she's very proficient at her job, and then so it's kind of like a love-hate relationship with her own guild because they want to keep her because she's kind of like trained as she was trafficked into becoming a ninja against her will when she was a young child, and now she wants a different life. She wants to reinvent herself. So anyways, I think it's going to be a cool story too.
Yeah, it sounds cool.
But it's well, anyways, I've loved having you on, and I hope I haven't talked too much.
No, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. I've really enjoyed it.
I want to recap. Ryan Oliver Jones, or Ryan Jones, is a fantastic voice actor. I'm sure he's a great stage actor as well. I've only gotten to enjoy his voice acting, but I'm telling you something. If you want to hire a fantastic voice narrator, I challenge you to go to ACX and look up Ryan Oliver Jones. He is fantastic. He can do. I imagine. Now, Ryan, do you like doing fantasy more than any other genres, or are there certain genres that you like voice acting more than others?
To be honest, I think sci-fi and fantasy growing up as a child is kind of probably a big part of the of my sort of childhood. But no, absolutely not. I think as long as it's an interesting story, something that can hook me, there's strong, relatable characters. It doesn't really matter to me. I first and foremost just would like to enjoy the story, and I think that's the thing. If you're looking for a narrator that can perform, then check it out. Then check it out, because that's something that I think that is probably my main strength as a narrator. That I can actually intersperse with a lot of different characters with dialogue and bring those alive.
Fantastic, and you convey the emotion, and I think you're as good as any that I've heard, and I feel like I think you would serve anyone well if they've got a good story. I wonder if I'd get sued. Do you remember that old show from the 80s? I don't know what that was for. So do you remember that old show from the 80s called The A-Team? I don't know if you remember that.
Oh, yeah, I do, yeah.
Yes. I wonder if I'd get sued if I played an audio clip of their intro. I was like, dun, 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 dun. And I could just be like, if you need a good narrator, and if you can find him, if you can afford him, look up Ryan Oliver Jones. No, I really do think he's awesome, and you can find him on ACX. Is there any other places that they should find you if they want to hire you, if they're looking for a voice actor or talent, or is that just the best place to find him? That's acx.com.
Yeah, it's probably the best place to find me if it's an audiobook. But yeah, if they wanted to get in touch kind of directly, then I'd have to sort of share my details.
I will tell you what I'll do. I am going to be posting a blog about voice narration on my website, and so I will be doing a chapter on that blog featuring Ryan Jones, and I imagine if you comment on there that you want looking for him, I can pass it along too. So that's at mericknhlwork.com. So without any further ado, it's been great talking with you, Ryan. I will definitely want to have you back on another time. This hour has blown by fast. I was going to say, so if you like the show and you want to support it, there's a link in the description below. It's called buymeacoffee.com/MerickNHUlrich.com. I'm messing the whole thing up. It's buymeacoffee.com/MerickNHUlrich. But there's just a link in the description. You can click on it and buy me a coffee, and that little $5 will help keep the show going. But without anything else, we just love having you as listening to our show, to my show, our show, whatever. And thank y'all for listening. And really enjoyed this conversation with Ryan Jones, and we hope to have him back on the show soon. It's been a pleasure, man. We are going to be talking soon about Brothers of Chaos Part 2, so maybe we'll have you back on when Brothers of Chaos Part 2 is done, so maybe in a couple of months or whenever.
Yeah, that sounds good. Sounds good.
All right, Ryan. Have a great rest of your day, and I'm sure the audience has... I've gotten something out of this. I've enjoyed it. All right, bro. Thank you. I'm closing out the show. Next time, I believe we have... Who do we have next on the show? I'm not sure. We'll find out soon. Anyways, great talking with you. I'm going to go ahead and end it now, and I've had a blast. Thank you, Ryan. See you next time.
Cheers.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Merick N.H. Ulrich podcast. Next week, we have science fiction and horror author James Flynn. So stay tuned.